Welcome to In Focus with Ejaz Haider. Our top story tonight is about continuing tensions between the Chinese People's Liberation Army and the Indian Army in eastern Ladakh. A meeting between defense ministers of India and China last Friday has not really resolved issues on the ground. India's Defense Minister Rajnath Singh and China's General Wei Fenghe met on the sidelines of a Shanghai Cooperation Organization's defense chiefs ministerial. This was the first high-level meet between the two sides since tensions began in May this year. Would you agree that this particular attempt, these leaks to the media, are more a face-saver than any reality on the ground?
I mean, of course, it's an attempt to bolster national morale and to bolster public support for the government. That all governments do in a time of crisis. That is hardly surprising or unusual. But I think that one should not discount the teeth or the capabilities of the Special Frontier Force. I think it's a highly trained unit designed for high-altitude warfare and with dedicated men who have been suitably trained. But there is clearly an element of attempting to bolster public opinion in the middle of a crisis.
Right. Thank you so much. That was Professor Sumit Ganguly speaking with us. We shall take a short break and return to discuss U.S. sanctions against International Criminal Court prosecutor for pursuing investigations into whether war crimes were committed in Afghanistan. Stay with us. Welcome back to In Focus. Our second story tonight is about a decision by the United States to blacklist International Criminal Court prosecutor Fatou Bensouda. Bensouda has been investigating charges that U.S. forces might have committed war crimes in Afghanistan. The decision to blacklist her was announced by U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Pompeo also said Fakiso Mochochoko, the head of the ICC's Jurisdiction, Complementarity and Cooperation Division, had also been blacklisted under sanctions authorized by President Donald Trump in June. The sanctions allow for asset freezes and travel bans. Pompeo also said that individuals and entities that continue to materially support Bensouda and Mochochoko would risk exposure to sanctions as well. The ICC has dismissed the measures as another attempt to interfere with the court's judicial and prosecutorial independence and said that it stood by the work of its staff. To discuss this further, we have with us David Lowe, author and senior research fellow at Leeds Beckett University Law School, and Professor Lyal S. Sunga, visiting professor Raoul Wallenberg Institute of Human Rights and Humanitarian Law in Rome. Let me go straight to Dr. Lowe first. The U.S. obviously does not agree with the jurisdiction of the ICC. In 1998, it was one of the 7 countries that voted against the Rome Statute, and then the second President George W. Bush basically unsigned the treaty, which was signed by President Clinton. So, how does the ICC have any kind of jurisdiction when it comes to the United States?
Shows how much of a big problem it is, and perhaps it's me, sort of the degree of cynicism. The court commenced in 2002, and of course that was the year when the US and allies like the UK invaded Afghanistan. Of course, it's not just the US, Russia, China, 2 other key members of the UN Security Council. They've not signed up to the Rome Statute either, and acknowledgement of the ICC. So it is a big problem, but it's disheartening because you look at the US, that's supposed to be this beacon of democracy. And I think in the last 4 years with the presidency of President Trump, we've seen some erratic behaviour. We've seen certainly a lot of issues in the US itself this year. over Black Lives Matters. We've seen riots in the streets. We've seen white supremacists shooting protesters. And we've also seen a foreign policy that blows hot and cold through the Trump administration. So really, I think it comes as no surprise that we're seeing this current administration, this failure to work with Fatou Bensouda and the ICC. And, the whole point is, and I get this with the human rights campaigners, the whole point here is, inquiries should be made into what did happen. And an investigation is investigation. There may be, at the end of the day, a clean bill of health, if you like, for US actions. We won't know because we won't have this investigation.
Right. Stay with me, Dr. Lowe. Let me pull in Professor Sunga here. Professor, what Dr. Lowe is saying is obviously fact-based. One of the things, additionally, is the fact that under President Donald Trump, we have seen Washington essentially make short work of the multilateralism and the rules-based order that previous American administrations, by and large, had tried to put together. So, under the circumstances, what exactly is, what are the options with the ICC, even in terms of investigations? Because clearly the US is not going to cooperate with them.
I would resist the notion that, it's all really about the Trump administration. And I think you were very well introducing the fact that successive U.S. administrations have not actually taken a very, very useful or responsible attitude towards the ICC. I was the observer for the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights at the Rome Conference, and I was quite disappointed to see that the Clinton administration did not sign the Rome Statute on the spot. And he waited till his very last day in office, President Clinton, to sign the Rome Statute, but then issued a warning saying that, the Senate's not going to ratify it, shouldn't ratify it, until certain flaws are corrected in the Rome Statute, which seemed to be a cover just to carve out space for the United States, not to have its commanders and soldiers, political leaders, held responsible for very aggressive action around the world that seems to have involved war crimes pretty consistently, crimes against humanity. We've seen things like Abu Ghraib and other really heinous kinds of activities going on at Bagram, Kandahar air bases in Afghanistan, which are the things that the prosecutor wanted to look into, as well as violations by the Afghan forces and Taliban on the other side. So not only that, but then the Bush administration with the national security and counterterrorism actions went very far, as we know. But that was not corrected also by Obama, who didn't hold any prosecutions of Bush, Cheney, or Rumsfeld for the illegal invasion of Iraq or for all the violations that were going on. And increased drone attacks, which are really a form of extrajudicial killing that also takes the lives of many civilians who happen to be nearby, 10 times from what the Bush administration had done, from 57 drone attacks to 563 in the term of Obama, notwithstanding his Nobel Peace Prize, etc. So, Trump administration's policy is really just an extension of, I would say, a vicious extension of very well-established policy since the end of the Cold War on the ICC, which is really, really a shame, because here exceptionalism is not what it used to mean, which is a special position to qualification, if you like, to push for democracy, human rights, and the rule of law, but rather to be accepted from being held accountable for the most serious crimes known to humanity. And that is really a shame. So exceptionalism is promoting impunity rather than trying to hold people to account. So that's I think, very, very unfortunate.
So the ICC options, for instance, I can quote from what President Trump said. United States will provide no support or recognition to the International Criminal Court. As far as America is concerned, the ICC has no jurisdiction, no legitimacy, and no authority, unquote.
I mean, these are words echoed that were already pronounced by John Bolton last year and then echoed by Mike Pompeo. One would hope that examinations. I mean, the activities of the Office of the Prosecutor do not hinge upon the United States. The United States does not have a veto. It just would be much more effective if major powers joined in and supported the ICC. But it can continue its work, notwithstanding asset freezes and personal attacks on the prosecutor and Director of Jurisdiction Complementarity and State Cooperation in the ICC. So that means that it's too bad that we don't get the cooperation of the U.S., but it will have to continue on its work. I want to make one point clear that maybe should come out here, and that is that some basic things. 123 state parties to the ICC obviously trust it. And they trust it because the ICC only becomes active when a state party is unwilling or unable to prosecute, crime of aggression, genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity on its own. So is the U.S. really saying it's not willing or able to prosecute its own soldiers and commanders for such heinous crimes? I should hope not. But the very well-established pattern has been that the CIA, which has been implicated as well as the international forces and, of course, the Afghan forces and Taliban, in all sorts of things that would seem to violate the Rome Statute, should be investigated. And if you don't do it yourself, then obviously these things cannot be, you can't get away with murder and torture and everything else that are suspected to have taken place. And there's a lot of credible evidence and a lot of communications from victims saying that these things have happened. And that's why the appeals chamber of the ICC on 5 March 2020 authorized the prosecutor to go ahead and to investigate properly, and she should do that, of course.
Right. Dr. Lowe, one of the technicalities is that even when a state is not a signatory to the Rome Statute, in the event that the citizen of such a state commits crimes that come under the jurisdiction of the ICC and are committed on the territory of a member state of the ICC has the jurisdiction to investigate them. Now, this is a technicality. So I'm assuming that the ICC is looking into this Afghanistan mess on the basis of this technicality?
Because Afghanistan is a member state and signed up to the Rome Statute. And Lyal makes some very, very good points, and certainly at the end there. And it's a concern, really, yes, I know it's been going on for some time, and I know my previous answer, I focused basically on what's going on with Trump. But, the US has tried to be this police officer of the world. It sort of tries to implement its issues of democracy, rule of law, and yet what we're seeing now is their non-compliance. But as you said, this happened in Afghanistan. US troops went in there, as did, as I said earlier, with UK forces, and of course the UK is a signatory to it. Why? It's so hard for me to grasp it. If you're preaching one thing on the one hand, you must carry it out with action on the other. If there has been, and as Lyal said, even with the CIA, there's a history of the CIA around the world that sort of acted in a very clandestine and unwelcome manner in many states, obviously to promote the interests of the US. But, let's have this, because we need international cooperation. We need international work on these areas where you talk about genocide, major atrocities. We need states to be held accountable. But it shows you a weakness that you can even have with the UN in certain areas and other multi-state organisations. There is a weakness on one hand, but I agree with Lyal. Let's get the work done. Maybe the UK as a member state and a close ally of the US could deal with the US, but I think at the moment it would be very difficult to deal with this current administration. I think maybe post-November, let's see what happens after the election. There may be Joe Biden there, that maybe the UK government can work a bit closer with and perhaps encourage cooperation. We'll have to wait and see on that.
Yes, right, Dr. Lowe, we have to wait and see. Thank you so much for your views. Thank you, Professor Lyal S. Sunga, for your views. This is all from In Focus tonight. We shall see you tomorrow. Keep following our latest updates on social media at indus.news. Good night and goodbye.